You know me. I don't do individual watch reviews that often, but every now and again, people in the comments mention a brand so many times that I feel it's relevant to chime in. As a result, I reached out to the US brand Vaer and asked if I could loan the A12 Dirty Dozen 40mm field style watch. I needed to understand why people were bringing this watch up so much. Let's dive in. Just to be clear, I don't keep the watch. Vaer have no pre-editorial review of my opinion. They are seeing this video at the exact same time as you guys. I also personally could not care less whether or not you buy this watch. If you like it, you buy it. If you don't, you don't. I get no commissions. I make no money. There's no affiliate link. And honestly, there just aren't that many views in reviewing a relatively small brand like Vaer. I share my thoughts. You make up your own mind. That's how it works. And with that out of the way, let's dive in. For $999 US, Vaer is offering a watch with 100 meters of water resistance. It has a locking screw-down crown. It's got 316 stainless steel. It's got a domed sapphire crystal with AR coating, 20mm lug width, 40mm case diameter, 48mm lug-to-lug, 10.4mm of thickness. The movement is a Swiss Sellita SW260-1 automatic movement with 42 hours of power reserve, and it's made in Switzerland, which I find funny, but we'll get back to that because I learned something about this the other day. The Vaer Dirty Dozen watch features a vintage-inspired case design that is largely brushed, but not completely. There aren't a lot of hard edges here. There are polished bevels here and there. The lugs are slightly curved. It's restrained finishing work and doesn't take the watch out of field watch territory, but this isn't a fully brushed affair. In the configuration that got sent me, it's got a rubber strap and a NATO style strap, plus a little store of extra spring bars and a mini spring bar tool. It's a cool little feature set. Now, if you want all of the features of my channel, then click the subscribe button. That button tells me that what I make is worthy of your time. So if you enjoy my channel and find it worthy of your time, please click the subscribe button. Thanks. Simply put, this watch wears really well. The proportions themselves in terms of diameter, lug-to-lug and thickness make for a watch that at least sits well on my wrist. The watch feels dense, and that's a good thing. It doesn't feel light, and as a result, it feels premium. There's just something, to me at least, about weight and how it affects your perception of quality. I have it on a rubber strap, which is soft and really comfortable. Honestly, I probably should have asked to try it with a bracelet because that's likely what most people get a watch with. But for me, this watch would almost always either be on a leather strap or a NATO. A Dirty Dozen watch is a reference to military watches ordered by the Ministry of Defense during the Second World War. The MOD decided to place an order for custom-built wristwatches. They needed to be accurate, reliable, durable, which in watchmaking terms meant they had to be regulated to chronometer standards and also be waterproof and shockproof. 12 companies would fulfill this brief. It was Buren, Sima, Eterna, Grana, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Lemania, Longines, IWC, Omega, Record, Timor, and Vertex. Vaer is not one of those companies. So the first question you have to ask is, did they just make a replica? And no, it's their own design with clear design cues from the Dirty Dozen watches, but of the 12, none looked exactly like this one. None of the originals use short syringe hands. The sub-second style does not cut off the 5 or 7 numerals, which a lot of the originals do. They are the polished and beveled flanks, which are a cool touch. All in all, there are enough small details and adjustments to make it a standalone interpretation. And honestly, it's a pretty good one at that. The watch itself is legible, and I just generally find myself again and again coming back to the conclusion that when an army back in the day needed something, they were pretty good at coming up with a brief that would lead to a highly legible and overall practical piece of equipment. As for the weaknesses, there's one thing that annoys me, which shouldn't really be an issue, but in the model I have, it has a movement inside that has a date complication, but there's no date window. I hate these ghost dates. It annoys me because I have more crown positions than I need, and I'm constantly moving back and forward to find a position that actually does something. Another thing that annoys me with the ghost date is this watch specifically switches dates at around 1 o'clock. You can hear it when you turn the crown. It's not the end of the world, and it doesn't negatively impact the thickness of the watch or the looks of the watch, but it's still a pet peeve that there's a movement in there that's not doing what it can do. Again, this is another thing that hasn't got anything really to do with the watch, but I have to knock this because it just feels a little bit absurd to me. On Vaer's site, you can choose between different watches, and you can select between American assembled and Swiss made. So in the US, to qualify to be an American-made watch, the rules are that a watch or anything has to be all or virtually all of the product has to be produced and assembled in the US. That's probably the most restrictive rule I've found in any country. But the Vaer models aren't made in the USA. They are largely assembled or a mix of local and foreign production. Except for models like this one that has a Sellita model inside and is assembled so it becomes Swiss made. I didn't talk to Vaer about this, but I spoke to a French brand the other day and they were clear. If you can throw Swiss made on a mechanical watch, it just sells better, especially in the US. Apparently you Yanks just can't get enough of things that say Swiss made, but it's just odd. And it's clear that Vaer would ideally like to make everything in the US. And mainly the hurdle to that is that there are no US makers of mechanical movements. So they're stuck in this as much American made as possible sort of middle ground. It's totally honest, it's open, but it's just a little bit odd when you also have a Swiss made watch in there as well. Now, are there any real weaknesses? I don't really think so, no. They're not one of the first Dirty Dozen watches, but it's a good iteration. And, that's when we get to an interesting detail. There's the Vertex, which I don't have on me now, but I've seen several times. They sell a 40mm Dirty Dozen watch with a Sellita SW's 260 movement. That's the same movement for those of you that are paying attention. It's got 100 meters of water resistance on a NATO strap for 3,000 euros. They both have the same stated accuracy, so I assume it's the same grade of Sellita movement. Now, when you get into the details, there are differences to the two watches. As I remember it, the Vertex has significantly better AR coating than the Vaer. The dial on the Vertex has more depth and dimensionality to it, partly because of the raised blocks of luminoma numerals, and also because of the circular pattern on the subdial. Getting into the nitty-gritty, that does technically raise the Vertex over the Vaer, but I'm not entirely sure it's $2,000 better. An alternative at a very similar price is the Hamilton Khaki, which comes in a ton of variations from movements to dials and even bezels if you include, the Expedition. If I had to choose between a mechanical Khaki and this Vaer, I'd probably go Vaer. And that's because of small things like the color of the numerals, white on the Vaer and usually more of a faux Tina on the dark dial Khakis. So what we end up with is a $999 watch, which looks good. It isn't particularly original, but it's a very good interpretation of a classic design that is comparably spec'd with its competitors and cheaper than some and better than others. I did make a mistake by asking to review this specific watch, and it's because it's their most expensive model. I wanted to get a sense of Vaer's quality in general. And this watch isn't necessarily reflective of their bread and butter lineup, which goes for much lower prices. So I can't conclusively, based on this one premium offering, say Vaer makes good watches. Those of you that have their cheaper watches, share your experiences in the comments so people can read and see what you feel about them. So anyways, there was this meme going on around Reddit the other day about the classic Gen Z burger joint. It was a meme about how people knew that all these burger joints have the branding of the menu on a chalkboard. They state things like, we try to do things different around here. And the cooks all have their black leather aprons. And the burger, of course, they've got the classic. That's the feeling I initially got with Vaer. They don't have the heritage that nerds like me are coded to yearn for. Because it's not a real Dirty Dozen watch, it doesn't really count. They aren't made in the Swiss Alps. It's just some Yanks who were surfing and thought, hey, let's make some watches. That's the cynical part of me speaking. But here's the thing. These dudes started a business, and yes, they source stuff, and no, they're not vertically integrated like Rolex, and yes, they have the classic burger. But there's only one real question I have to ask myself. Do they make a decent burger for a reasonable price? Yes. This specific $999 burger is pretty decent for a solidly spec'd watch and a really good looking design. I like it. On my scale from grail to buy to shortlist to think about it to there are better options out there, it's a shortlist model for me. For those of you who own one of their cheaper models or this model, share your experiences below. Talk about their quality, customer service. Share so others can learn from your experiences. That's all I have for this time around. Like, subscribe. Cheers.